Kitvach, we're up to Yutes Amid Days, and unfortunately for you, I left off in the middle of a sugya, which I should have finished, but I didn't. So let's just get back. Gemara to Shaila, if a person sold a katana, amanas that there's no yield. We know that there's two components: the sale of the amivriya, and the fact that the adain, the master or his son, should go ahead and marry her, which is called yield. So according to the Tanakama, it was mastal mashakasa b'Torah. In other words, you're going against what the Torah wants. The Torah tells you that you can go ahead and sell an amivriya, but you have to have the capacity to do yield. Rabbi said no. Rabbi said no. You can go ahead and make the condition, and you wouldn't have to fulfill yid. You can make that condition, and you wouldn't have to fulfill yid. Where did Rabbi know from? It said the word la'ama, which seems to be an extra word, that you could sell it just for an amma and not for a potential wife. In other words, it's limited. There, you're selling her as a katana, as an amma, as a slave, but you're not. So therefore, you have a gezeres hakasav. Even though Rabbi holds that if you're mekadesh a woman, almanas, that you don't have sherksus v'oina, that the tie is bottle because you master mashkasa b'Torah. Over here, he said you have a special gezeres hakasav that says la'amma. The Rabbanan who said by Yud Masla Mashakasa B'Torah. So what does he do with the limit of Rameya? What does he do with the La'ama of Rameya? So he learns out that you're able to sell her to Psulim, people who you would be over a lav if you married, a mamzer, an amoni, you will be able to sell it to them, La'ama as an Amma. That's what the Rabbanan used. We have a third opinion now, and that's where we're up to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. So we're up 3 on Yud Testament base, 4 lines up. What does Rabbi Eliezer do with the word Amma? Rabbi Eliezer Omer, if the word Amma is just to tell me that you could sell it to Psulim, and even though the possibility of doing Yiyud would be over in the Servalav, it says, Imra be'eni adoneha. What does that mean? Imra be'eni adoneha, Shara b'nesueha. That you were raw, in the Rashi says, Shara b'nesueha, Shasula. That you were robbed and a raw by marrying off to someone that's asata, that's raw. You did an act of raw. So I don't need amma for that. In other words, I agree you could sell it to psulim, but not from the word amma, from the word raw. You did a shlech. In Yiddish we say baruch, right? A shlech zach, right? We did a shlech zach. Kenny, right? There you go. We did a shlech zach. And Rabbi Adonai, Sharab bin Suha, Ma tabalay la'ama. What do you have to tell me la'ama? Then according to Rabbi Elazar, that you're able to sell it to Kroivim. Now, even though the Kroivim won't be able to fulfill the mitzvah of Yiyud, because this is a chi of Karis or Mises Bezdin, because they're Kroivim, nonetheless, you would be able to go ahead. Nonetheless, you would be able to go ahead and sell it to Kroivim. That's what he uses L'Amma for. So we have three limud from the Amma. According to Reb Meir, L'Amma is to teach me that you if you would go ahead and sell her with chutz miyud, it would work because you have a gezeres hakasav. Like the chachamim, L'Amma is to teach me you can sell it to psulim. Like Rabbi Eliezer, you could sell it to Kroivim. And even though the Kidushin is not typhus, right? Even though the Kidushin is not typhus, you can sell it to Kroivim. Says the Gemara V'lo dinhu in meichel lepsulim lo yilimcheren lekroivim. If you could sell it to Kroivim, you should psulim. Shouldn't you be able to sell it to Kroivim? Ayale asmalet lemeichel lepsulim shemratzel liyayid miyayid yimcherena lekroivim shemratzel liyayid ein miyayid. So therefore, what you would say you can't. The reason why you should be able to sell to psulim rather than Kroivim, because even though you can't marry a mamzer, lo yavei mamzer b'kal Hashem, if the mamzer would be mekadesh the woman, the Kidushin would be typhus. Amanu kain gadol, gushal chayil. We know this. We've been through Yavamis, guys. We know this. That in other words, with the exception of Rabbi Akiva, Kidushin is typhus b'chai ve'lavim. With the exception of Rabbi Akiva, Kidushin is typhus b'chai ve'lavim. So, however, by Kroivim, you should not be able to sell to. Why? Because a korov, the Kidushin is not typhus. Chai ve'lavim, krisis medicine is not. So therefore, I would say you should not be able to sell to Kroivim because you couldn't be mekayim the mitzvah of Yiyud. Comes along Rabbi Eliezer says la'amma that you could sell to Kroivim. Those are limudim, right? And so Amar Kro la'amma malamit shemaychel Kroivim. Now Rabbi Meir who used la'amma, right, to teach me that if you go ahead and sell her on the condition that there's no Yiyud, where does he know these halachas from regarding psulim and Kroivim? Good. In other words, Reb Meir, where does he know the dinner of the Rabbanon who used Amma for Psulim and the dinner of Reb Eliezer who used it for Kroivim? He'll learn it from Imra Beini Adoneha. Imra, if you were bad, if you were schlecht, right? So therefore, he would know you could sell it to psulim, because after all, you did a bad thing. What about Kroivim? He doesn't need a limit for it because he disagrees with it. He says that what? You could not sell it to a relative. You couldn't sell it to a relative. So that's the end of this sugya. That's the end of this sugya regarding how you use the word amma. Okay. Tani chada. Moichra la'avid. Could you go ahead and sell it to his father, which is the girl's grandfather? Can a man sell his daughter to his father, which is the girl's grandfather, right? Could you do that? This is a karev. The ein moichra lebinoi, but you couldn't sell it to his son. So it's interesting. You're telling me on one half you could sell to a relative, on the other hand you can't sell to a relative. So this is problematic because we had Rabbi Eliezer said you could sell to Kroivim. We had the Rabbanan said you can't sell to Kroivim. Here we have a hybrid. One karev you could sell to the grandfather, another karev you couldn't sell to the son. The Tanya idach ein moichin loyla aviv loyla b'nai, neither one. Now Bishleim the latter brisa ein moichin loyla aviv loyla b'nai k'Rabbanan holds like the shitas of the Rabbanan that you can't sell to a relative. Elam moichin aviv ein moichin b'nai kiman loy k'Rabbanan says you can't sell to a relative. Like Rabbi Eliezer says you could sell to a relative. Notice, like Rabbi Eliezer, you should be able to sell to the son as well. And like the Rabbanan, you should be able to sell to anybody. So who is the first price according to that sells? You could sell to a grandfather, but you can't sell to a son. Loyal Rabbanan. Loyal like the Rabbanan, who says you can't sell to a relative. Now, let's do this outside. We know Yid is accomplished by two people. Who are the two people? The Adin, the master, or the master's son. So, if you would sell a daughter to her grandfather, could the grandfather marry her? No. Now, the grandfather's son is the girl's uncle. Right? The grandfather's son is the girl's uncle. Can an uncle marry a niece? Absolutely. Says the Gemara, since you have a tzad of yiyud accomplished by marrying a possibility of marrying the uncle, that the Chacham would agree you could sell. However, if you would sell to his son, right, what would it be? It would be the son, obviously, right? The son can't marry a sister, nor can what? A niece, nor can now it would be, right? A niece, right? An aunt. So it would be what an aunt. An aunt can marry a nephew. Okay, so it says the Gemara Vaita. Okay, so therefore that now that would happen over here. Come on, like Rabbanan. So by the grandfather, you'll be able to marry the uncle. Masha came to sell to the brothers, right? He's asa, and his son is asa, right? Because she can't marry an aunt, can't marry a nephew. Very good shema. It says by the mechira of the mechira. It says no, that's the wrong pasuk. Let's get to the right pasuk. Begapa yavai, begapa yetze, and bal ishahu v'yatze isha imay. So what does it mean in begapa yavai, begapa yetze? This is speaking about in Parashas Mishpatim by an Eved Ivri. What does that mean begapa yavai? So we have machlokes over here. Exactly what that means. Begapa yavai, begapa yetze. Says the Gemara, two pshatim. In begapa yavai, begapa yetze, begufay nichnis, he goes in with his body. Begufay yetze, he goes out with his body. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, then we'll explain that in a second. Yechidei nichnis, yechidei yetze. My begufay nichnis, begufay yetze. Samarava loymar she'enu yetze b'rosh evarim ke'eved. We know in Eved Kanani, when you cut off one of 24 limbs, they go free. But Gufa is saying the following. You would cut off one of the limbs, and you'd be mashlim, you would go ahead and pay up. You would pay up. So Begufay, he goes out with his guf. He doesn't go out Rosh Evarim. He doesn't go out, he goes out with his body when he physically leaves, but not part of his body, So you pay for damaging him, but Begufay, he can still be. So in other words, he doesn't go out Rosh Evarim. Rabbi, so it says, but that's what Rabbi says. So Abaya, I don't need the pasuk Begufay to teach me that. I know from another place. It says he doesn't go out. It says Avodim. Avodim, Evet Kanani, go out Rosh Evarim, not every Ivri. So it says, Rabbi, I would say, you know what it means? It doesn't go out. An Evid Kanani goes out, but doesn't get compensated for his loss. An Evid Ivri, I would say, he gets compensated for his loss and goes out. Kamash Malon, but Gufa, you'd say that he doesn't go out, even though he gets compensated. Talmud Leimar, they have Kamash Malon that he takes the money and he doesn't go out. If he comes in alone, he goes out alone. If he has what? If he has a wife, then Rabbi Meisler Shifla Kananis, his master is able to give him a Shifla Kananis. We know Nevid Ivri served the master day and night. That's what we said, Hanako, you go ahead and give him Hanako because he worked so diligently. He produced Avodim for you. When are you able to give an Evid Ivri a Shifla Kananis? That's if he has a wife. So, Ein Isha, if he doesn't have an Isha, Banim, Ein Rabbi Meisler Shifla Kananis. So, Biyachidi, if he comes in alone, he goes out alone, right? If he comes in with the wife, then he will have an Isha, he'll be able to give a Shifla Kananis. Nimcha b'mana, when you bought him, the slave market was at 100. So you bought him for 100. V'shpiach, and the slave market went up to 200. For Amin al-Masayim. Now, he wants to buy his way out. Does he have to pay the price of his sale at 100? Or does he have to pay the current price at 200? He's worth more now. Which you go after the price the sale at the time of the sale, or do you go at the time now or what he's worth now? It says you only can go consider the time of the sale. Shenemar, it says mikesef miknasai. It says by Yikro Chafhei, it says the imma at nishar mishanim at shnasa yovel v'chishav lo kfi shanav. That's the wrong pasuk. Im od rahmim mishanim lefichan yashem glasay mikesef miknasai. That might also be the wrong pasuk. Okay, it's Chafhei Nun Aleph. Chafhei Nun Aleph. In Moed Rabbis Bishanim Lefian Yashu Gulasai Mikesef Miknasai. That's the pasuk. It says what Mikesef Miknasai. Right? Then Shneimar goes, you pay Mikesef Miknasai. Mikesef means the silver, the money, Miknasai of his acquirement. So obviously you can go after the 100. That's the money he was acquired for. Nimcha b'Masayim v'Hichsif. Let's say he was sold for 200. And now he got cheap. They got devalued. It's only 100. It says Kefi Shanav. The pasuk says another pasuk. The pasuk says according to his value now. Good. So therefore, you see, you always make it easier for the Evet to go out. If the Evet price ascends, it gets appreciated, then you go after the earliest man. If it gets depreciated, you go after the latter man. And we have a pasuk, the earliest man Mekesef Nasai, and the only Kefi Shanav according to his years, that right now you're going to make the cheshbon according to the years right now. In other words, what's not according to what he was worth at the time, but now he's going to go ahead and redeem himself, Kefi Shanav, his years at the time he's redeeming himself. So therefore, it will be in this case the 100 rather than the 200 that he was purchased for. Now pasuk is speaking again, and we go back in the sugya of Avodim. Anytime you're speaking in Parshas Bahar, you're speaking about a moicher atzmai, someone who sold himself, and we're also speaking about the two parshas: one who sold himself to a goy, one who sold himself to a yid. We just described the parsha, one who sold himself to a goy. So I would say that you go ahead and you go after either way you go after the evaluation, whether higher or lower. I would think that since he can be redeemed by kroivim, therefore the guy has a lower hand. As we learned earlier in the Masechta, in this parak, sacha creates a relationship between sold to a guy and sold to a yid. So just like sold to a guy, you go after the cheaper amount. So too, if you sold to a yid, you go after the cheaper amount. Rabbi. Says Abaya, I'm like Ben Azai in the streets of Tiberia. Abaye says, I'm like Ben Azai in the streets of what? Of Tiberia. Abaye was feeling very, very what? He was feeling tremendous clarity. He was feeling a sense of, if you see Rashi, I'm Rabbi, Harini Ben Azai, when his das was very clear. He would be accustomed to say this. I'm open and prepared. I'm ready. I'm prepared to go ahead and answer any question. Who lived in Tiferia. He was a tremendous charif. All chachamim are like me, like garlic leaves, except Rebbe Akiva. So in other words, Abai was feeling this sense of clarity, and he says, this is the time you want to ask me any question. This brings to mind one of the more pressurized moments of my life. I'll share with you. It's a great story. I left Eretz Yisrael in Lamed Ches, 1978, and I was in Koilel in the Mir Yeshiva, and I didn't know what I was looking for direction on what to do. So my wife, Baruch Hashem, she allowed me to go to Eretz Yisrael. You're talking about Mem Aleph. You're talking about 1981. And I went back to spend Elul Zman 3 weeks in Eretz Yisrael. I think it was the first or the second week I was there, and I was sitting and learning. And my Rebbe Zatzal came over to me and said, Lezer, nu, ich bin muchen zu hören a Shtickl Torah. I'm prepared to hear a Shtickl Torah. And he said, Ken sagen wo du willst, ken sagen Zroyim, Kotschem, Tyrus, Noshim, Nezikin, ich ken Kol HaTorah Kula, ken sagen wo du willst. I know Kol HaTorah Kula, you can say whatever you want. Trust me, when somebody comes along and says that to you, there's a lot of pressure. I said, so then I saw this Gemara, I always think about that. He says, I'm like, like I'm really ready to hear something. My Rebbe said, Ken Kol HaTorah Kula. He wasn't boasting. It was just, again, his clarity in Torah, it was just amazing. I still remember saying, I once told him a shtickl Torah, and he said, it's very good, except, and he turned around, he took his little shas he had behind him, and he went to some toisvis tucked away somewhere in Avodah Zarah, which had nothing to do with Avodah Zarah, nothing to do with anything, but clearly contradicted everything I said. Like totally, it was just all in front of him. It was incredible. It was just totally in front of him. It was just amazing. I was just up by his kever, and he wouldn't have been happy. But this is what he wouldn't have been happy. But it's going to come out. Does it come out backwards when I go ahead and put it on over here? Comes out backwards? Wait, no, you can read it. Okay, so if you look at the bottom, if you look at the bottom, the last line, it says Yachid b'dayroi le'eniach k'maisai. He was a Yachid in his dar, and he didn't leave anyone like him. In other words, whoever wrote this, the Rashiva wouldn't have not been happy, but whoever wrote it felt that he didn't leave anyone as great as him. It's what it says on his kever. This is his kever. So it's I tell you, it's really true. Tzadikim b'misas nikrachayim. My Rebbe's dead since 1991, and he still lives on. I share him with you all the time. He just lives on, and in me and in all his Talmidim. And memela by you. It's the Messiah of Torah. It's the beautiful Messiah of Torah. Okay. Anyway, so said Abaya. Sorry for the digression. I just got a little emotional. Anyway, some Amar Abaya. Harini ki Benazai b'shuki Tiveria. I'm like Benazai in the shuki of Tiveria. Amalei humir abban Abaya. Okay, michti. Hani kroi ikla midrashina lekula. The ikla midrashina lekula. My chas is dashina lekula. Nidrei lechulma. Now it's these psukim. You were able to darshan. Right, we had over here. You darshan them. You go after the cheaper price always, right? You're going after the cheaper price. Why do you go ahead and say to go after the cheaper price? Shanav, you go after this price now. You go after the price when it was sold. In other words, I could have dashed the other way, right? I could have dashed the chumrah. Now my question, why do you see to do it lakula? So now so says the Gemara, loy sal kedaitach to go ahead and go be lachumrah. Mida aklu rachman lagabe. We find that the Torah is makel by the Eved Ivri, the Tanya. Where do you find the kula? Because it says by the Parsha Manaka, he toiv loch imach, right? He was good with you. It said by Eved Ivri, right? Toiv loch imach b'meichel, imach b'mishta, meaning imach meaning you have to give the Eved Ivri the same food you eat. You have to give him imcha b'mishta. You have to give him the same food the same drink that you drink. Shleite ata oichel pas nakia. you should not be eating what? Pas nakia, which is clear bread, good white bread. V'oichel pas kiba, he eats whole wheat. Ata shoysa yayin yashan, you drink what? Good antiquated wine. V'u shoysa yayin chadash, and he drinks the new stuff. Ata yashan al gabe muchim, you sleep on a good mattress. V'u yashan al gabe hateven, he sleeps on straw. Mikan amru kol hakoyin eved ivri k'koyin adam latzmai. Anyone who acquires an eved ivri, he's like acquiring an eved to himself. He's acquiring an adam to himself. So therefore, it makes sense. Why should we mach by the eved ivri? It makes a lot of sense that what we should be, what if anything, we should be more mako. Because again, we see that the way that we have to treat this person. We see the way you have to. Okay, let's see Taisvis. Kol hakoyin eved ivri k'koyin adam la'atzmai. The last Taisvis on the page. The kasha, my odin. Notice, why can't he be just like him? Why does he have to be an odin to him? He only has one mattress. If you're going to sleep on the mattress, you won't be mekayim. You were good to him. And if you don't drink on it, sleep on it, and you don't give it to your eved, zumi the sedaim. In other words, Samach be nana from the mattress. What are you going to do? You have one mattress. If you sleep on it, you're not mekayim kitov la'imach, right? If you don't sleep on it to avoid that, and no one sleeps on it, that's the midah of sedoim. Nimsa shal kochut tzarich limsa la'avdai b'hainu adon la'atzmai. Nimsa, what do you have to do? If you have one mattress to share, who do you have to give it to? You have to give it to the eved. The mela, you're kind of nothing to yourself. Gavaldi Yerushalmi, guys. You hear Yerushalmi? It's good Taisus. Rabbi Yavi, mark it down in your book, right? It's a good Taisus to know. In other words, you have one thing to share. You can't take it for yourself. Why? Because that won't be Mekayim Kitav La'imah. Not to use it at all. It's a midah sedaim. That's terrible. So why you have to give it to him? So what do you see? You got another. He's ruling over you. So Mamela, it makes sense that we should. It makes sense that we should go ahead and be makel. Okay, says the Gemara, "Ve'emahani mili le'inyan achilu shtia kihechit loy le'tztarle," that Yishimim le'tztar, right? That he's not benefiting from your eat and drink. Halin pidyon nachmer leha. Maybe regarding pidyon, we should be machmer that you have to go for the higher price. With Rabbi Yossi ben Chanina, right? The Tanya Rabbi Yossi ben Chanina Omer borei kama kosha afka shalisk. Now, guys, we're going to go through a sugya that starts in Vayikra Chafhei, and if you read through the parsha, it says do not do ribbis, and as a result, if you do this, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. So let's go through it, and you see, you have to go through Vayikra Chafhei to go through each pasuk to see how it it's the chain effect, the domino effect. If a person does one avera, it starts a chain of events that ends up with him selling himself into slavery, as we're going to see right now. So we would think that le'inyan pidyon, we should make it harder on him. Kamash not. Says the Gemara. Why do we see the Tanya? Even the dust of shvius. That it's you're having enough from shmita. Adam noisav, I think I said ribbis. I meant shvius. Adam noisav noisav b'perish shvius. A person, it says lo'achla. You're supposed to eat perish shvius. You're not supposed to do business with it. If you do business with it, you may be mavatal the asay. It's a lav that you infer from an asay. It says you should eat it. What's the inference? But not sell it. So that doesn't have a din of a lav. Don't sell it. It has the din of an asay. You'll be mavatal the asay by. So now, if you end, you're going to go ahead and do that. You know what Hashem's what's going to happen? The next pasuk says you're going to sell your possessions. Shnemar b'shnasa yovel teshuvu yishal chuzasai. The samachle right next to it says right? So you're going to end up, in other words, you're going to end up, if you go ahead and do business with Paris Shvius, you're not going to be successful. Ad kedei kach, you're going to have to have a yard sale. You're going to have to start selling your possessions. Lehirgish, in the end, if you're not margish that Hashem is talking to you, l'soif moicheres sedaisav, you're going to have to start selling your fields, which in karka is a much more, you always want to keep karka because real estate is a much more what's the word I'm looking for? A stationary, not stationary. I'm looking for a word, investment, right? It's a much more. Anyway, Hesh, give me a word.
Stable.
Stable is the word. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hesh, you got to get quick at that finger, Harold. You know.
Yeah, I said stable. Yeah.
Stable. Okay. Stable. Okay, got it. Anyway, so it's a much more stable investment. So you obviously you're not going to want to sell your field, but you end up going to sell your field. You'll be poor. You're going to have to sell your ancestral possession, your field. Now, if you don't do tshuva after this, now notice it. You switched from like hirgish to like basal yada. You switched the lashon. You weren't sensitive to it, and you didn't do tshuva. So the sequence of events. You sold Perish Shemitah, you sell your metaltlin, you sell your house, and you sell your fields, and now you're going to sell your house. Shenemar ki imchar beis Moshav ir chayma. You're going to sell your house in a walled city. Again, this is all in the parsha of Bahar. What's the difference where you're not margish, where you have to sell your possessions? That you're going to have to sell your house. In other words, like hirgish means that you were not sensitive to it. Like bal liyadai means you won't even do tshuva because you won't even think you did anything wrong. Because when a person does an aveira, once a person does an aveira and repeats it, hutrulai becomes mutter to him. I have a meaning that if a person does an aveira, it becomes mutter. Alanas is like a heter. Right, it becomes heter. A person goes ahead and it's not a heter for him, but it becomes mutter. When a person repeats an avera a second time, it becomes heter. Rabbi Yisrael Salanta says, you know what? And what about the third time? It becomes a mitzvah. Rabbi Yisrael Salanta says, by the third time, it becomes a mitzvah. You know, already showing that's the way of the Yetzer Hara. Once a person does something, it begins to begin. So in other words, like Bali Yadei Tshuva. I'm just in this state of flux where I'm selling everything, but he's not going to even realize that's the result of what? Of him selling Perish Shemitah so many years before. Like Bali Yadai, he won't. At Shemachas be a Beisa. He's going to sell his house. Shnemar Chiyim Chuish is Beisa L'Ama. The Africa of the Beisa like Sivahayinyana. Even the Beisa it doesn't Bita. I'm sorry. La Bali Yadai Ashemachas Bita. He's going to end up selling his daughter. Shnemar Chiyim Chuish is Bita L'Ama. Now the problem is we just in Parshas Bahar. Parshas Bahar discusses the mechira of an eved ivri to a goy or a Jew. It does not discuss the parsha of Am Evriya. Am Evriya is in Parshas Mishpatim. So how can you go ahead in the middle sticking? You're going through this litany of events that's going to occur. Why don't you go ahead and where does it come that you're going to sell your daughter? It says excuse me. The Avik of the Bito like Siva Bahayanyana, even though it's not written in Bahar, Hakamashmon that Nizvin Inish Barte, a person will go ahead and better sell your daughter like Nizif Berbita rather than borrow ribis. And ribis is in the parsha. My time, why is it better to sell your daughter than to borrow for ribis? Barte Migora Vinafka. A Barte, she's going to go ahead, deduct her money. She's going to deduct her money. In other words, she's going to buy her pigeon out and she's going to eventually go out. Masha'en Keimat. A person who, for ribis, what happens, right? It just goes more and more and more. It just constantly, let me get over here. It's messed up. Yeah, the person goes ahead and he buys for ribis from his sefer v'nafka for her moisfa v'azla. The ribis gets more and more and more. Like if he doesn't go ahead and change his ways, right? Actually, he's going to end up going ahead and borrowing for ribis. Now, fellas, be aware, as we're going to see in Benji's favorite parakes in Eshech, right? That not only is the person who lends beribis over the Issa, the person who borrows beribis is over the Issa. So this person will be so desolate and despondent, he's going to go doing what? He's going to end up borrowing, being over the Isra of borrowing for ribis. And this is in the parsha. imach b'samach le'atichach me'itay neshech v'tarbis. Lebo liyodai at shemaychres atzmai. In the end, he's going to end up selling himself. So shenemar v'chiyamach achicha v'nimcha lecha. It's not going to be even to a Jew. It's going to be to a guy, a ger. Shnemar leger v'loy leger tzedek. Not even to a Jew. A leger toishav. Shnemar ger toishav. Mishpachas ger ze'oy v'kechavim kashu oimer. La'aker. It says aker is a ger that he's oiker. That he's why he's a mitzvah. In mitzvah to be oiker to avoid the sorrow in base. Zeh nimchol avoid the kechavim. Atzma, that someone's going to sell to himself. So think about it. We just went down a whole litany of events that a person begins with an innocuous sale of Shemitah. He's going to end up selling some talent, selling his house, selling his field, selling his house, selling his daughter, and go through the whole thing. And it's going to end up selling himself. So the bottom line is, you see this guy sunk so low to sell himself to a guy, right? And so the chayro, we're going to be machmer on him, maybe Vilinian Pidyon. So in other words, this is all part of the kasha. What's the kasha? Going back to the kasha, the paper trail over here. What's the paper trail over here? We said we had two psukim. Kesef Mignasai. If he gets more expensive, we go Kesef Mignasai, right? And if he goes down in price, then Kfi Shona. You go according to him now, right? You're going according to him now. So read the Gemara. Why do you dash in that lechumro? Let's dash in lechumro. Why should you dash on the chumrah? Because you see that a person who ends up selling himself, right, it's because he did a bad thing. Like Rabbi says, Gemara, Amalei, and for Gemara, Hasam Hoda Hadre Kra. The pasuk goes ahead. What? The pasuk goes ahead and says the following: Tana the Rabbi Shmuel, Hoyel b'holach zev nase koimel avedes kechavim. I would think since this person became a servant to avoid zara, malitchi even acha neifel. You know what did we say? Let the stone fall down the slope. In English, we say he made his bed. Let him lie in it, right? Right. That's right. The guy made his bed, let him lie in it. So this guy made his bed, let him lie in it. That equivalent is let the stone fall down the slope. Right. After another achrei nimcha gula tieloi, echad me'echav yigalena. Mashma that what we want to be mako to make it easy him to be paid himself, that one of his brothers can be paid him. The ema gula tieloi ki hech delay letame ben oiv dechavim. That's dafka the Indian gula that he shouldn't be among the goy. Good. Maybe, in other words, there's a mitzvah poida for them to be goyo, but how do you know it's at a cheaper price? Right? The opinion, maybe it's more expensive. There's two psukim. Now, this pasuk seems to be size to themselves. How many years can he sell for? 6 years, right? Guys, 6 years. Now it says oid rabbis bashonim. It's mashma what in oid rabbis bashonim that what that's that he has many years. Uksiv ma'at nisha bashonim. So it's mashma some more years and some less years. Meaning of the 6, there's more than 6 or less than 6. You don't have a lot. You don't have a little. You just have what? You just have 6. Ella, what do you have to say? Nisrabai kasbai mikesef ignasai. If Nisrabai kasbai, if meaning he became worth more, then mikesef ignasai. You go after the price of kesef. Nismayit kasbai, but became worth less. Kitfi shanov. Okay, this in other words, this is a long-winded Gemara, basically to say the same thing. That what? That we're always going to be mako to go ahead. If he appreciated, we'll go after the price of the sale. If he depreciated, we'll go after the price worth now. Good. Finally, where he worked 2 years, and he partially dalid, he has 4 years to go. Then the yasavle dalid mikesef and nasai. In other words, if he worked 2 years and there's 4 to go, then he's closer to the price of when he was sold, because he's only 2 years in his years of bondage, right? He's only 2 years in. So it would make more sense to go after the time of the sale of the dalit. But once he passed again, you know why I use 2 and 4 fellas? Because you're passing the roiv. He's there for 6 years. So the roiv will be 4 or 2, depending, right? So I would think if he worked 4 years and now he has 2 left, then you go after Kidei Shanov. So it has nothing to do with what being more worth or less. It go according to the amount of years that he worked. So why do you assume that Kesef Mignasai means no matter what time being year 5 or 6, you're going to go after the sale of what he was worth when it was sold? And if he goes up in price, it goes down in price, you're going to go after the Kidushin of. Maybe it means, it depends. At which point in time is he going ahead and redeeming himself? If he's redeeming himself closer to the beginning, then it's some kesef gnasai. If he's redeeming himself closer to the end of the years of bondage, then it's Kidushin of. That's the way to explain that. Says the Gemara. I'll tell you what to say that. One more time. Hekid of it trey upashle dalid niyasle dalid mikesef gnasai. Of it dalid upashle tarti niyasle tarti kfi shana. Says the Gemara. In Cain nichtav kra im oid rabbi shonim. Right? It should show you word shonim, not bashonim. In miyad nisha shonim. It's just going after the years. Right? My bashonim. What does it mean bashonim within the year? It means you go after what's within the year. This rabbi kasbay bashonim. If he became worth more bashonim than bekesef gnasai. This my kasbay bashonim again in the year itself then kfi shonim. If it just meant the year, it should say shonim. But it obviously means the value means bashonim what they're worth in that year. Rabbi Yosef loved this drasha. Dashin Rav Nachman lahani kroa kisinai. He dashed in this pasuk what like Sinai. He dashed in this pasuk like Sinai. The way he dashed in kesef miknasai. That what it goes after bashonim and therefore goes according to the sale. Kidushin of means according to if it went down in price, we go according to what it's worth at that time. Every so let's say he sold for $100. He's able to get together 50. Can he go ahead and reduce his sentence by half? Can he give him 50 and reduce the sentence? So that's what we want to know. Can he do that or not? Right. Says now, why shouldn't he be able to do it? Do we learn out? Now, stay achuza, you have to go ahead. You cannot redeem it. There's two things about stay achuza. One, he can't borrow money. He can't borrow money and pay it back. I'll show you. I'll share with you the pasuk. It's in Vayikra Chav Hey. Okay. There's a lot of pasuk in Vayikra Chav Hey. Okay. If your brother gets poor, and he's selling his achuza, I'm reading it from Chav Hey, pasuk Chav Hey. And his karv can go ahead and he can redeem it. Let's say one of his relatives does not want to redeem it. If his sigu yada is mashma, and he himself goes ahead and now is be able to masig the price. Not that he can borrow and do it. The sigu yada, he himself had to attain the amount of money to purchase it. And now he's found to have the value of the thing. So we see the one thing that he can't be loiva, he can't go ahead, what? Borrow the money and do it. Okay. Now it says mashma needs the full price and not what? Half the price. So if you're going to learn out Evid Ivri from Stei Achuza, he will not be able to go ahead and redeem himself a half. Because clearly by Stei Achuza you can't. And in both cases it says the lashon of Geula Sai. It says the lashon of Geula Sai. Now, says the Gemara. Boy minei Rav Huna Rav China. Mersheshes. Evid Ivri nimcha oivik kechavim nigal lechatzayin ein lechatzayin. Geula Sai. It says Geula Sai Stei Achuza Gamar. Ba Stei Achuza ein nigal lechatzayin. Af hainami ein lechatzayin. As we saw, it says in the parsha, it says umatza kedei Geula Sai. So you have to find the full amount and not chatzayin. So if you're going to go ahead and compare in every two stei achuza, you won't be able to. Maybe we say a kula and not a chumrah. Meaning, as we're going to see, if you go ahead and sell a chatzayin, sometimes a chumrah can come out. And we only want a kula to come out, not a chumrah. Since the possibility exists for a kula and chumrah, we don't do it. Now, there's an important tosfos over here. Let's see that tosfos. Gulasa gomar. Ne'erlo Rabbeinu Tam. The lav gezer shava gemurahi. This is not a complete gezer shava. I'll tell you why. Elegili milsa ba'almahu. It's gili milsa. It's megala what the Torah means. The gezer shava gemurahi. If it's a gezer shava gemura, in Cain, Ma'ika Omar, a dilma lekula amrinan lechumra loy amrinan. Hakim navi gezer shava bein lekula bein lechumra islan lemelef. That's it. if it's a full-fledged gezer shava, fellas, whatever din exists over here exists over there to some extent. We want to know doin mina we know vuki basra. That's Torah. But a basic din you'd have self. Good. So Memela, the Tosfos is telling us when it says gulasoi from stay achuza, not that you learn it out from stay achuza, but you'd have a gili what the geula means by Eved Ivri. Just like stay geula, it means ein lechatzayin. So to by Eved Ivri, it means ein lechatzayin. Or no. Since that we know Eved Ivri, we want to be makel, as we just had a whole sugya. We want to be makel to get the guy out, right? And sometimes lechatzayin can come out of chumrah. So the Torah is megal. Maybe the Torah is megal. No, that's the way you learn pshat over here, but not a complete kaser shava, because then there will be no shaila. The Gemara would not be a shaila whatsoever. Says the Gemara. So that's a shaila. Is there a din of geula l'mechza or not? Amalei. So Rav Huna asked Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes answered Rav Huna Bar Chanina the following: Loy Amid Hasam Nimcha Gula. It said Nimcha Kula v'lechetziav. We had a Gemara Hachanami Nigal Kula v'lechetziav. Fellas, if the Evid's worth 500 and the stealing was 1,000, or the Evid's worth 1,000 and the theft was worth 500, why did we say the other day? He's not sold. He's only sold if it's parallel. 500. The theft was 500. He's 500. The amount of the thief was 1,000. He's 1,000. Nimcha kuloi. So in other words, it has to be the same amount. So who adin inyan pidyon? It has to be the same amount. Nigal kuloi lechetzio. When he's goyel himself, he's goyel completely. Okay, so it's similar to steiachu. It's similar to steiachuza in that aspect. Amar Abaya says right now. Rabbi is coming to go ahead and explain, fellas. Imtim Sulaima means usually the following, fellas. Imtim Sulaima means we weren't poshet the shaila, and Imtim Sulaima, if you push it this way, what about this then? That's the usual formula for Imtim Sulaima. You ask a question, and then based upon how you would go ahead and be poshet that question, you have another question. Over here, that's not possible. You will push it already. Ein nigla chatzayin. So, but we saw what was the other side. The other side that you should be paid l'chatzayin is what is a kula, right? A kula, but it's a kula that can come out of chumrah, right? A kula that can come out of chumrah. So therefore, maybe what we would be paid l'chatzayin. But okay, says the Gemara the following: Imtim salem and nigol l'chatzayin. If you can tell me that you could be nigol l'chatzayin, mishkachas ol l'kula u'l'chumrah. You'll find a kula l'chumrah. What's the kula? Zavnei b'meya. He bought him for 100. Yoble chamishin palgo dedane. The Eved then gave him what? Gave him 50. The Ishbach and then become al maslan. He then went up to 200. Then what? Yovle meya. He would just have to give him 100 up at 100 more for nothing, and he'd leave. Yovle meya v'chamshin for nothing. He'd have to give him 150. Again, he was 100. He gave him 50. Now he went up to 200. So there's a 150 discrepancy. If nigel chetzayin, you'd only have to give him 100. But if it's not, if it's not nigel chetzayin, you have to give him the full 150. You said that what? You just told me that you always go after the cheaper price. So even if he goes up in price, why would we have to give 150? Guys, you hear the kasha. You're telling me that if he's not looking at you go up to 150, but you always tell me you go after the cheaper price, 100 to 100. We shouldn't care a bit what he went up. So why would nafkamina be lechetzayin? Says the Gemara, ki going the oiker v'zol oiker. Originally he was sold for 200. Then he went down. So if you go with kesef ignasa, it's going to be 200. So when Meilabab is going a kishot of the 100. It was 200. The zol he went to 100. The oiker then went to 200. So therefore, you know why kesef ignasa? Because that was 200. So now he was 100. So Kesef Shani go after the years now, L'chatzayin, therefore it'll be either 100 or 150. Mishkachas ol l'chumra. How do you find the chumra? Savni bin Masin. He was bought for 200. Yov Meya Palgi Dedami. He gave 100. The Ichsif. And then he went down, the Kamal Meya. So Be'emes, L'chari he bought him. If you're going to say that if Mechza, then he's free. If you say Nigol L'chatzayin, then Yovle Chamshin v'nafik. Let's go ahead. You have 100. You have 100 left. Give 50. You're gone. So comes out the following: if he's not legal lechatzayin, so what's he worth now? He's worth 100. Yes. he already has given the guy 100. Good. But ein nigel l'tzayin. So what was that 100? The 100 given to the guy? It wasn't for. It can't be for the price of his geula, because he can't be nigel l'tzayin. So it's like he put his safety deposit box. He was having $100 by the guy. Let him now take the $100 out, give it to the guy, and go free. So that's the chumrah. This is going to be a chumrah. If you're going to say nigel l'chatzayin, he's still going to have to pay money. So he'll have to pay 100. If you can say ein nigel l'chatzayin, so the fact that he gave 100 is meaningless, because he's not able to. He was worth 200. He gave 100. But that 100 doesn't mean anything. Since you can't be goyal yourself for 200, it means nothing. For a half, it means nothing. So now, what's he worth now? He's worth 100. He went down in price. Hey, guess what? I got $100 by the guy. It's like I entrust him to watch it. Says the Gemara, Hanach meya pikadin ninu gabei. That 100's like a pikadin by the guy. Yavlu nele v'nafik. Okay, take it, give it to the guy, and leave, and that's it. So therefore, that was the shaila of l'kula chumra. We approached it the shaila for nimcha kulai dawat ein nimcha l'nechts. Boy, we never found Rav Chanina. Meir Sheshes. Hamoicha bias b'bati arecham. Now, there's a whole parsha in Vayikra Chavhei of what's called bati arechaimer. That a person, he goes ahead and he sells his house in a walled city. He sells his house in a walled city, and he has to go ahead and get in a year. He has a year to go ahead and leave to redeem it. If he doesn't redeem it within a year, he loses it. The ishki yimchar beis moishav ir chayma. He has a year to complete it. This is in Vayikra Chavhei Pasuk Chavtes. Yomim tia gulasai. They should be his gula. And if he's not goyal for a full year, the kama bias shabira shaloi chayma. That's misus lakoina oislador. It should be forever. The person who bought it layetzi v'yovel. He will not go ahead and get it in yovel. As opposed to stay achuzi after the sale would go back in yovel to its owner. The bate oirechayma leaves. Now the question is, can you go ahead and buy half it back? Could you buy it back? You know, we had the shaila by stay achuz is not nigel etzayin. Evidivri is not nigel etzayin. What's the din by bati arechayma? Is it nigel etzayin or not? That's what the Gemara wants to know. So boy mine Rav Huna Rav China again Rav Sheshes hamoicha bias bebati arechayma nigel etzayin ain't nigel etzayin. Gulasa mistei achuza. It says yomim tia gulasai, and by stay achuz it says gula. And the same thing over here as Taisus guys, not a Gezer Shava, but a Gili Milsa Ba'alma. Do we compare Bati Arechayma to Stei Achuza? Ma Stei Achuza in a Nigel Chatzoy Nav Hainami, so to Bati Arechayma cannot be, a house in a walled city cannot be redeemed. In Nigel Chatzoy, in Oidilma, Heki de Gali Gali, Heki le Gali le Gali, where it was redeemed, it was revealed, or it wasn't revealed, If you look at the end of Taisus, now, the Chemashmal Kamei Gabi Bati Arechayma, the Kama Heichid the Gali where the Torah reveals the halacha. Heichid le Gali. The Gezer Shavi he afilu Heichid le Gali nami. By Gezer Shavi, even if it's not redeemed, you learn out from the other place that should be the halacha. So Taisus Rabbeinu Tam is supporting his pshat that this is not a Gezer Shava. It's a Gili Milsa. So if it's Megala that Steichusa is not sold for half, but maybe we're hechid legali, such in this case by the Bati Arechayma, it could be redeemed for half. Amalei, so said Rav Sheshes to Rav Huna Rav Chanina, in the Drasha Rav Shimon Nishma, from the Drasha Rav Shimon, who was Darish time of the Kra. Again, Rav Shimon, we saw that was Darish time of the Kra. You can go ahead and Nishma Shaloiva v'Goyel. You can borrow money and redeem the Goyel lechatzoyin, and you can be Goyel what for half. So, guys, let's go back to the beginning of this sugya. We bought a pasuk that what by stay achuza. We bought a pasuk by stay achuza. The ish kilo legoyel v'sigu yadai, meaning he himself has to have the money. He can't borrow it. Nor can he go ahead and redeem half. He needs kedei gulasai. He needs the complete amount. So now says Rav Shimon by bati arechayma, the din's the opposite. A loiva v'goyel, he can borrow the money and redeem his house, and B, not only that, he can redeem half his house. That's what the Gemara says. Rav Shimon, matam, right? Matam. There's different dinim by stei achuza, just off the top of my head. If you sell your stei achuza, it comes back to you in yovel. If you're magdish your stei achuza and you're not goyel, it goes to the kahanim. You lose it. Good. So we know that you have a koyach that it comes back in yovel. Now, but the Orechayma does not come back. Nonetheless, even though it comes back to you, we know that when it comes to redeeming, you can't be goyel by borrowing nor by hefzis. Magdish, where you're magdish yistei achuza, shahira koichai, where you have a weaker power. Shemigia yovel like nigala. If yovel comes and you fail to redeem it, yoitzel kahanim be yovel. Yafa koichai shaloiv v'goyel v'goyel chatzayin. Okay, so you could do it. Okay, meaning you're going to lose, guys. Where you're not going to lose it forever, the Torah is machmir that no hefzis and no borrowing. Where you will lose it forever, if you magdish it, the Torah says, guess what? Borrow money, be goyel, even half, because we don't want you to lose your property. Because if it comes yovel and it's magdish it, it's gone. So therefore, that's yafa koichai, and the yafa koichai is that you should be able to go ahead and borrow, and so therefore we want to say the same thing. But the Arichaminami, it's similar to Hegdish. How is it similar to Hegdish? Because you're going to lose it. If the year goes complete, and you fail to redeem it, nechlat, it's gone. So now, from Reb Shimon's drasha, guys, by Hegdish, we're able to ascertain what it didn't be by Batei. Okay, eye contact. Let's go through this outside. We have a shaila like this. But the Arichaima, which you're going to lose in a year, can you go ahead and redeem it? Half. Now we know there's two halachas: borrowing the money and halves. We say by stei achuza, neither works. What's the name about the Arichaima? Says, guess what? You can do both. You can borrow the money and half. You can buy back half your house. Where do I know that from? I know that from Hegdish, because there's a difference between selling your field and being magdish your field. What's the difference? If you sell your field, you'll eventually get it back. You sell your field, you eventually get it back. If you magdish your field and you don't redeem it, you won't get it back. So you know what we did by Hegdish? We made it easier to get it back. What? By doing what? By allowing you to borrow money to be goyelit and even half. Good. But the Arichaima is more similar to Hegdish than it is to Mechira. Why? Because you also lose it after the year. Therefore, since like Rav Shimon, you go ahead and lose it, what will we do? We'll go ahead and we'll say you can borrow money, and not only that, you can go ahead and redeem half. That's the shayla. Okay. This brisa held that once we make it easier to get something back, right? Once there's a yipa koyach, right, will continue to be yipa koyach. So once it's a bad koyach, will be yipa koyach. So what's the bad koyach? The bad koyach is you're going to lose it. So since you're going to lose it, we'll be nice to you and let you redeem it easier. The next price is once you lose it, we're going to just heap upon you. We're going to make it even worse. Esevei. In gol yigol, the pasuk says, "Malamed shaloiv v'goyel v'goyel." Okay, so what does the pasuk say over here? This last pasuk. In goyel, this is your test. Perek Chav Zayin pasuk your test. Not so. B'mistei achuza yagdish pasuk tezayin. Ish Lashem v'hoya erkochel fi zara yizera chaymes orim b'chamisha shekel kesef, the set amount. Mishlasa yovel yagdish sedeo ke'erchel yakom macha yovel v'yimagdish yifti yovel yagdish sedeo b'chishav loy hakoynes a kesef al pi ashonim and asoros. Go ahead and make a cheshbon the year, how many years are left, and you'll go ahead and according to that ratio, you'll redeem. Gol yigol es hasadeh hamagdish esoy, he has to add a fifth. Now, what's the double lashon of Gol Yigol? So we're speaking about a person who is redeeming him stei achuza. So what does it mean? Gol Yigol, What's the double lashon? Melamed shaloi v'goyel lechatzayin sheyachol v'loy dinhu. We're able to dash from kal v'choyim that you should be able to do it. Uma moiches te'achuza sheyipu koyach shemigia yovel. If yovel comes, if you just sold your te'achuz, you're going to get it back. V'loy nigla chayzeres lebayal lecho biyovel hayre koychay shein loy v'goyel lechatzayin magdish shahira koychay, who has a worse koyach when it comes to yovel. Shemigil yovel v'loy nigla. If yovel comes and he wasn't goyel it, yoytzel lekahana biyovel is going to go out. Again, this price, the guy says the opposite of the first price outside. In the first price, we felt since you're going to lose it, we'll make it easier for you to redeem. This price says since we're machma regarding losing it, we're going to be machma by the pidyon, right? We're going to be machma by the pidyon. Madach where it's easier, it's easier, right? It's easier to get back by selling it. Nonetheless, you can't borrow, you can't lechatzayin, where it's harder to get back. You're going to lose it in yovel. Einoy din, you should not be able to borrow. Einoy din, you shouldn't be able to go ahead, sell it, buy it back lechatzayin. Okay, so this price goes is the opposites. Once we heap on Hegdish, we're going to keep on heaping on. So in order to avoid that, right? It says you have to wait 2 years before you go ahead and redeem a field that you sold. If you magdish a field, you can redeem it right away, right? Will disprove you. You don't have to wait a year, but you can redeem right away. So you have a problem. Over here, you see that what? It says mafurish by Bati Arichaima, you cannot borrow and you cannot redeem l'chatzayin. So after the long-winded price is one thing. The first price it says you could be goyel, borrow money and be goyel by Bati Arichaima, and the second price says you can't. Like Kasha Amid Aleph, Harabbanon Hareb Shimon. Okay, the Rabbanon did not learn time with the Kra, and he did not learn where it's hard, you're going to lose it, we're going to be makel on you. Where it's not, we're not going to lose it, we're going to be machman on you. The Rabbanan said that what? You can't borrow it. You can't borrow it. That's the second brisa. Rav Shimon, the brisa that said you can borrow, that's according to Rav Shimon that you can borrow and redeem. One brisa says by Bati Arichaima you can borrow and you can go lechatzayin. But Tanya Idach, a second brisa, ain't love of go lechatzayin. How do you reconcile the two? Like Kasha, Rabbanan, Rav Shimon. The one that says you can't borrow and you can't redeem lechatzayin is the Rabbanan. The one that says you could is Rav Shimon. Good Tavach. Thank you all for listening.